the loading screen. I call it the loading screen, but it's really a splash screen. Instead of that, one thing I did for another game is I wrote just a bunch of coding using opacity and the every tick function, and then minus opacity, opacity, current opacity -1, that kind of thing, and then a current opacity +1. Alternatively, you could use the sine function with opacity. So there's 3 different ways to do that, and I'm sure there's more of them that I could show you eventually. And then forwards, backwards. I never used that one. I actually use horizontal. Potentially the same thing. Here, look at that. And then you have the wave type, which the sine is kind of a wavelength. That's what you normally see. The triangle, sawtooth, reverse sawtooth, and square look all funky. There's no graphics to show them what they look like, so it's usually a trial and error, or I have to make some kind of graphics to show you examples. Pre-made graphics. The period is the time that this triggers, or the time for it to complete a cycle. Like if you're going back and forth for 4 seconds, then the back is going for 2, and then the forth is going for 2, or something like that. I'm sure, yeah, something like that. Period random gives you like a random type of, I want to say offset, but there's an offset right here, but a randomness to the movement or whatever you're doing, so it doesn't seem so programmed or static. Like if we had a bunch of these going with sine variables all the same, then it'll just, everything's moving all at the same. Like they're all moving left at the same time, hitting the same point. They all move right at the same time, the same point, and that, number 1, probably looks like shit, and number 2, is likely not how you want things to work. You probably want movement to go back and forth independently of everything. However, you want everything to be the same objects, you know what I mean? You don't have to make different objects for every single platform you make, that kind of thing. The magnitude, this is basically the effect. For instance, back and forth, this will go back and forth, I want to say 50 pixels in this instance. And so if we increase this to like 400, then it'll go way across the screen, instead of nice and tight like that. Alright, so let's take a look at what this looks like right now. Oh, you can see it moving right there. Nice slow movement. Let's see if we can play with this a little bit. Period of 4. Let's make the magnitude 200. Let's see how funky this looks. Not bad. It's got some swing to it. You'll notice when I jump, there we go. Oop, almost died. You notice if I try to, and it's swinging me, the momentum does not carry me. So I gotta hold right while I jump to do that. Can't get up there. So that's an example of the sine behavior for platformer. Pretty good for that kind of thing. Ooh, there's the goal. Okay. Let's go and make some variables. Player 1 health and death. Life, death, all that good stuff. Existentialism. No. Player 1 health. You'll want health because if we make enemies or something like that, depending on what we're going to make the point of this game, the player has to die or get destroyed at some point to make difficulty. So we have death occurring right here, and then we have jumping around and all that good stuff, and there's nothing really else going on. Let's say we have an enemy that if it hits them, it's going to knock off life or something like that. So what we're going to do, well, what I'd do, you could add an instance variable to give it basically health every single layout. And that might be one approach that we could take. However, I'm usually a big fan of global variables because I can still control them. And plus I could always change my mind later. So let's call this player health. Start at 100. Could always change it later. you'll notice the variable goes up all the way to the top. Now, global variables, you most of the time, I don't want to say always, most of the time they're always going to be at the top. And these are going to initialize first when you start your game. When the event sheet triggers, anything that triggers or is loaded happens in order. So for instance, on another game I have a destroy a bunch of objects, and then I have create a bunch of objects. If I don't put destroy up first, then the game's going to start with everything destroyed, because it's going to create and then destroy, because it just goes down in order. It happens very fast, but it still happens like that. Or yeah, duh. I just said the same thing twice. Derp. Alright, so I have a player health of 100. And while I'm here, I could... One thing I could do, to show you how to add a... Where's that bad boy? Make an OR block. I can add another condition, which says if global, since this is a global variable, you don't go to the player, because the player only has instance. Compare variable, we're looking at player health. Now you could do equal to 0, however you most likely don't want to, because equal to 0, like what if it happened, what if you're at 1 and you take 2 damage and then you're at -1? It just bypasses 0, then that's a problem. It doesn't tick 1 at a time. So this one will always catch, this one will always catch what you need. So this is saying, okay, if the player collides with Death Sprite, it's going to restart the layout. Or if player health is negative, less than 1, it's going to trigger restart of layout. I think, can I add something here? Yes, I'm a big fan of that. Oh, can't do that there. Oh, you know what? I think I gotta kill the OR. Health spells. That should work how I want it to. Usually I add the trigger once while true to my conditions, because it feels like it gives me more control. Maybe it's newbiness, maybe it's a placebo effect, but a lot of times what could happen, depending on what your trigger is your trigger could just continually happen. And so, for instance, if your trigger is to create something or to spawn something, and it triggers, and that's great. If you don't have anything to stop it from triggering, it's just going to keep triggering, so you could end up like with 100 objects, like in a matter of seconds. So in order to combat that, you add a trigger once while true condition, and it just triggers once, and that's it. And each time that condition fires off true, it'll fire off. Now obviously it has to trigger, so it can't just be set and then that's it. It has to be set, unset, re-trigger. Something has to force it not to trigger again, or however it works. It really depends on what you're doing. So this could work for now. Okay, so it's a decent start. What other variables could we have? Time is a variable. The time formatting I gotta look up, because you could have it just in seconds, which is really easy, but if you want to have like minutes, and you want to have it like 5:00, and then have it all nice and smooth to where it reaches the next minute, that it triggers to the next minute, and then it triggers the next second to 59, looking all good, then that takes some more coding, because you have to do some reformatting. I can show you that once I look it up next time. I have it on my hockey game. I have it on my hockey game right now. And it was a pain in the ass, because I had to pause it all in order to do the face-offs and stupid stuff like that. Also, pausing in itself, you gotta have a pause button. Let's go ahead and what can we add here? Let's go and add the goal type door. Let's make this green. Doesn't really matter right now. Not too shabby. And I'm on the game layer, which is awesome. So I'd probably fill this in with a door with a nice black mysterious shadow or what have you. Alright, so we are going to say player collision with sprite 4 because we haven't named it yet. Let's say we're going to go to the next layout, which I do not believe we have anything programmed yet. So right now I don't think it will go anywhere and the game will just end. One thing you can make to be very easy is have this all be linear, so you can always use the next or previous layout if you're going back and forth between the same menus. That makes it really easy. If you want to skip around or something like that, you could also go to specific layout name. So we have this selected even though we don't have it. And I'm going to show you the functionality that nothing should happen, I don't think. Maybe the screen will turn black. Oh, man, I suck at this game. I could probably jump up right there, huh? Ah! Oops.